My name is Robert Towers. I've been acting since I was 6 years old, beginning in radio. Yeah, there were radio actors one time. And I've been fortunate enough to do some films and some television shows and a lot of theater. I originated the role of Snoopy in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown years ago on the West Coast. I have done many other shows, musicals and dramas, 1776 and How a Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, all those kind of things. And I've been fortunate also to do some movies. I did The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I was the old, young Benjamin for a lot of the film, although they removed my face and put some guy named Brad Pitt's face there. I don't know what they did with that. And I also did a movie with, I played the character of Karg in Masters of the Universe a few years back, and I've done at least about 20 films all told. I've also done some TV shows. I was the original Snorky on the Banana Splits. I've also done voiceover for tons of cartoons and things, including, well, what was that one called Kid Video, and one called Cool Kitty in a series, and Doctor Dolittle for a series. So I've done all those and still working. I'm 75 years old, so I have some memories of the past, of how things used to be. But to me, things are always getting better, but it's always nice to look back as long as it doesn't catch up with you, you know. Basically, that's it, and I hope to keep working until they make me stop, which I hope is never. So, as far as L. Ron Hubbard is concerned, you know, to be honest with you, I read his science fiction stories when I was a kid. I got very much into science fiction about the age of 12, and he was a very popular author, and he was one of my favorites. I loved to read his stuff. And I had no idea that he had written so many stories, that he had created so many interests, or that he had the life he had. Just reading his autobiography is enough, or the biographies that are written about him I mean, it blows the mind. I hope someone does a film about him, some biographical film, because there is so much. Now, he brings to his stories all of that, all of the adventures he actually experienced. When I was a kid, there was also Richard Halliburton. I remember that he always had those adventures, and we were always excited to read that. And it's the same thing. This man, he lived a dozen lives, maybe 20 lives, and all of that, see, brings the stories. That's why they're so authentic. Hubbard's stories have this quality of truth, you know, that you don't find in other ones. You know, I mean, I can go there because I used to get, from reading Pulp Fiction, I used to get stuff all over my hands. So I read a lot of Pulp Fiction, and there was always this kind of, yeah, but I don't believe it. That doesn't happen here. Yeah, the stories sometimes are outlandish. They go pretty far, but there is underneath it, because of what he experienced, what L. Ron Hubbard went through in his life, there is that authentic feeling and that feeling of reality that none of the other stories have. And they are there in all of those stories. No matter how far out he gets, there's that underpinning that makes it work for an audience and makes them say, yeah, that's kind of crazy, but you know what? I believe it, and that's why. Well, of course, the stories themselves are so much fun. They are so much fun. They give you a sense of the past, because many of them take place in the early 30s, the early 40s, during World War II, that sort of thing. And there is an authenticity about them. For all the Pulp Fiction fun of them, there is also an authenticity that, you know, is the basis of it. Because the author, L. Ron Hubbard, experienced so much. He traveled so many places, and he did so much in his life. I would call him a Renaissance man, in the sense that he was so accomplished in so many fields, and he put that all into his stories, which is so great. So there's always an authentic basis for everything in that, you know. And of course, having grown up in that period, you know, I was born in 1936, so I grew up in a lot of that period. And while I can't vouch for a lot of the adventure things, because I never did much of that, I was a kid in school for a lot of it, but the feeling of the time and the sense of how people felt at that time is very strongly conveyed in those stories. And I guess you could call it educational, but I call it a lot of fun.